Hey, everybody. My name's Ryan Atkinson, and you are on Business Cloud. Today, we have a conversation with Vanessa Gabriel, the CEO and co-founder of Drop. She comes on to talk about cannabis delivery, the regulatory concerns of the industry, selling her first cannabis company, delivery, sales, and much more. I'm super excited for this episode. Let's dive in. Welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you.
Thanks, Ryan, for having me. Yeah, super happy to be here today. And yeah, thanks for letting me share my story.
Awesome. Well, I want to start out in your early days when you were with Greenlight, because your first company was actually acquired in 2018 by Leaf Technologies, which they are now a publicly traded company. Super cool. But I'm curious, can you give us a little bit of perspective, like what Greenlight was and how that acquisition process really came to be?
Yeah. So similar to, Richard, who was on the podcast and how he said he kind of solved his own problems with SaaS and building a startup. Greenlight was born out of an idea by my co-founder, Mark, who's also the co-founder and CTO here at Drop. So basically he was at a local dispensary, and in California, the lines are like super long at times. And so he was like, I already know what I want. I'm a repeat customer. Why can't I just order it through an app and pick it up and skip the line? Just like you can do, with food, or even, nowadays just with retail, basically anything, a lot of things you can do that. So, but this was, back in 2016, 2017. And so that really gave birth to the idea of Greenlight. Like, you have the green light to skip the line and pick up, your cannabis at the dispensary. So we got to work and we did some market research. We stopped at a bunch of dispensaries, kind of had to learn, the operations wise of like, okay, how many patients do you see a day? Like, what's your time frame, like with bud tenders speaking with, patients? How about the people that, already know what they want, type of thing? How do you handle that? So we learned a lot, and then we were like, I think this could actually work. And so we built the app. We built the Greenlight app so you could download it and see local dispensaries in your area, and then place an order for pickup, skip the line, and also earn loyalty points and rewards for your purchases. So that was something that we really wanted to add on, was that through our market research, we saw that a lot of them were still doing, not only like check-in points and stuff, but even like punch cards as well. So we were like, we could totally digitize all of this. And why don't we just put it in an app? So we built Greenlight and launched it like in 2017 when rec use was legalized here in California. And it kind of just like quickly took off. We were really lucky that it had its moment to go viral. And it was amazing to learn on like the dispensary side of things. And that was our first jump into cannabis as a whole.
That's cool.
Me, Mark, and my other co-founder, Jade, we had done a bunch of projects in plethora of different industries, but that was our first in cannabis. And I mean, there's still so much opportunity for technology and cannabis in general. I feel like we're definitely still behind in some ways. So for us, we were like, literally the possibilities are endless when it comes to cannabis. We visited dispensaries that were checking all of their patients and customers in manually, by hand, by paper, etc. And we're like, everything can be digitized, so that really was how Greenlight happened.
Yeah, what's really interesting about that is, like, was there like regulatory reasons why this wasn't digitized? Because it's not like cannabis is like a new industry where like this was started in like the 50s and it's just like, oh, well, this is how it's always.
No, I mean, there have been like, companies that were very niche, like companies that would just focus on like the loyalty and rewards aspect, or like the the check-in process, but nobody really attacked the like pickup, like order ahead and pick up. That's why we were really shocked, because we were like, back in 2017, I mean, like, you could, even then you could use an app for basically anything. So I mean, it even still baffles me. I mean, there wasn't delivery of, cannabis. And it still isn't in some states, even though they have a very established cannabis industry. Like, they still don't have regulations around it, but we definitely have made strides. I mean, that
That's
kind of leads into Drop, and how that came to be. So after the acquisition of Greenlight, we're a team that just loves building. So we took that opportunity to be like, we loved building this. We kind of want to jump to the next thing. And we were like, let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum for consumers, and that's delivery. What's it like to get your cannabis delivered? And we were like, it's not being done really well, if at all. And so what we found was that a lot of business owners, they were using a whole bunch of different software platforms, anywhere from like 5 to 7 to do all these things, do SMS marketing, to manage their inventory, to manage their drivers. And so we were like, we can just build this all in one, and nobody has like their own app, so that their customers can purchase directly from that. And so that's really what we wanted to focus on, was an all-in-one solution that encompassed all of those things. And I don't think that had been done, is because it's like building 5 companies in one, and it's pretty scary, and it's a huge undertaking to build. And I think it's obviously much easier to just focus on one piece as a business, but no challenge is too big for me and my team. We love a good challenge, and so that's how Drop was born and built.
interesting. I think it's really cool because like even with like Greenlight and now Drop, you're really taking it's basically a CRM, how I'm kind of thinking of it, for like cannabis, and CRMs have been around since 2010 with HubSpot and Salesforce. But this is really taking 5 solutions and packaging it into one. And did you say, is there like another company on the market that is like similar to like an all-in-one platform?
No, like maybe a company has like one piece or maybe 2 pieces, but no one that has all the pieces that we have in-house as our own that we built. Because then that defeats the purpose. I could be another company, a competitor, but I have all these partner integrations, but then again, my client could be using 5 platforms again to run their business. And so that's really what we wanted to solve, was that fragmented software stack issue.
Interesting. So do you take like I like when founders like take like a playbook, or like basically not copy someone else, but like copy somebody else. Can you do anything from like Grubhub, or like, I'm trying to think of like the other delivery fees?
Oh yeah, I mean all the time, because I mean exactly, like why reinvent the wheel if something works? Or like even with Greenlight, what we saw was we took a lot of inspiration from like Sephora and Ulta in the makeup industry, because of the reward system. Like that's how they have all these women so loyal. And we even built our own acrylic boxes to have in the dispensaries to show off rewards, because that's how Sephora did it, and it works. And it was a hit. So yeah, we definitely take inspiration, because it's like, as a consumer, I expect that. I've seen it in other places, so why can't I have that? And that's the thing, is like with cannabis, and there's been a disparity, is like we get all these experiences in other industries, and then the cannabis industry is just like down here. So that's what really drives us and inspires us, is to not only make it on par, but also how can we make it even better. But yeah.
Interesting. So when I'm thinking about this, you really have like 2 ends. Like you have like the consumer end, like the people like you deliver for, but you also have the companies that you're working with. So can you tell us like what's like the biggest challenges of like building a product for the end user, but also delivering a product for these companies?
Yeah. So I think the hardest thing, first off, is when we work with clients is, there's a sliding scale of how big or small these clients are, and their needs are all kind of different. So that's one thing we really prided ourselves on when we first launched, was that, hey, look, we kind of built the foundation of what we think you need and what you've kind of told us you needed, but we're not in the day-to-day trenches. So you're the ones delivering, the cannabis, you're the one doing this every day. So we made ourselves very open to feedback from the very beginning. And that was hard initially to sift through, because then we got like inundated with so much feedback. Everyone's like, I need this, and then we were like, okay, yes, we could do all of that, but then we were like, okay, wait, we can't do all of that. And then having to really figure out a process on what's important. Can all of our clients utilize this new feature that's being requested, etc. So that was one thing, really figuring out that product feedback flow.
Yeah.
But I think, it's really made us stand out as a company, because we heard a lot of times from clients when they were, first getting onboarded, like, oh my gosh, I couldn't even talk to a support team or the founders or whatever at this other company. Like, I would tell them something and it would never get done. But for us,
Interesting.
for like, we'll do it, and we'll make sure that we do it. So yeah.
Yeah. How did you decide like what feedback you should implement? Was it like running a bunch of data and be like, oh, well, so many people are saying we should do X, Y, Z, or like,
Yeah, exactly. So then we started to build out, all this data tracking of feedback, how many times, it had been mentioned. Was it from an enterprise client? Was it from an SMB? And so yeah, all factoring in all of those things. And it's still a learning curve. Like, sometimes we do we push something out and it doesn't get the response that we think it's gonna get. So yeah, and I think that's what's fun about entrepreneurship, is just kind of like every day is different, especially in cannabis. Like, new regulations could come out tomorrow from
yeah.
some new state, and it's like going to change our wholesale strategy for the next quarter, like that.
I
So
think it's really interesting that like it is such a fast moving industry. It's like basically AI. AI is like an industry that's moving so quick, and so is cannabis as well. But like it baffles me that like the technology is like kind of lagging behind, and like
mm-hmm,
how you serve like the clientele.
mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's like I said, back in 2016, 2017, we were like walking in a dispensary and we were like, that could be like 10 companies that solve all of these different problems right here. It's insane. But I think, I mean, cannabis, it's a hard industry. I mean, it's
Yeah,
fairly new-ish, there's still not federal backing, so I mean,
yeah,
I think there could be stigmas on, people that want to jump into this industry. And yeah, it's not, it could be looked at as not as stable sometimes. So I
yeah.
do think there could be factors on maybe why people haven't jumped in. But I think that kind of just makes this journey all that more fun in the end, is that you kind of never know with cannabis.
I think that's like a mentality to have, is like, no, like I don't really know how it's gonna work, but like we'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's always been our mentality. It's like, we'll always figure it out, and we have been. And so yeah, I think that's very key to
Yeah.
entrepreneurship.
What are some of like the biggest misconceptions? Say, I'm 30 years old, I've got $1 million, and it's like I want to jump into like the cannabis industry. I mean, like, what are some of the things that like I'm not like seeing before I do that?
Yeah, I think, one, it differs by your state.
Yeah.
Every state has their own regulation. So that's one thing,
Mm,
is, as an ancillary company, we don't touch the plant, but we still do need to adhere to the different regulations of each state. So it doesn't vary too much. There maybe is like 20-30% that could change, like, you know, obviously like age requirements, or like certain things with drivers, or like, for
yeah.
example, in California, the delivery driver has to be an employee of the business. They cannot be a contractor or
Interesting.
1099. Yeah, so like that's when people are like, oh, well, Uber, ever deliver, but I'm like, most of those people, are 1099 or,
Wow.
so yeah, so there's like that HR thing. So all these like little details that can make it, and obviously it depends too. I mean, the regulatory tracking of cannabis from seed to sale is big. There's so many different steps and processes on where it, depending on what kind of business you want to start in cannabis. And I think initially, yeah, it really just depends. Like, do you want to be a grower? Do you want to have a
Yeah.
dispensary? Do you want to just deliver? Do you want to just do technology? So it really just depends. But I promise you, like, if anybody did want to jump into cannabis, it's not boring, for
Yeah.
one. It's definitely not like a mundane type of industry. I think that's what's so cool, is that we know there's a lot of progress still to be made in the
Yep.
industry that we're all hoping for and we're all striving for. Um, but that it's coming. It's just like about figuring it out and change, literally. Like, for example, when with New York City, they just opened, I think, their first dispensary out there.
Yep.
Um, in this city, but then they were like, wait, they can deliver,
Yep.
hold up. And then so like these random delivery regulations just got like pushed out, ran out of nowhere. And so it was like a huge opportunity for us, and it still is. And so we're in contact and trying to get in contact with all of these companies, because we're like, you could deliver with us and like get started like that. Like, you know, you don't need to build anything, like we have everything. So and like we knew New York was going to be a big opportunity for us, but we didn't know it was going to come that quickly. So like I said, like in cannabis, like anything can happen, like literally tomorrow. That can
Yeah,
impact.
take me through that time. So like when New York announces this new regulation, I mean, like what goes on? Like what are the internal meetings like with Drop? Like what is it like? Oh, we need to act now. Like let's execute
Yeah.
now. How did that?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like literally, oh my God, did you see the news? And like, did you see this news link? And then everybody reads in, we're like, we need to get on a meeting right now. You know, let's get the sales team together. And it's like, okay, this is huge because they're all dispensaries, but New York is granting them the ability to deliver. So, and they can deliver before their store even opens. So we are the like perfect solution, because you can get started with this right away if you already have your product, or if you're, you know. And so for us, it's like, how do we fit in the picture? Oh, we fit in like actually perfect. Okay, who are all the people that got licenses? Found it. Okay,
That's cool.
now let's start going down the list, contacting all of them. Let's set up meetings. So yeah, or like we already know people there, so it's like, do they know them that can make an intro? Or for example, Dutchy got called or like named the social equity tech partner for these licenses for the dispensaries. And we're like, yeah, and we're like, okay, that's great, because now we can just integrate with Dutchy and be the whole delivery piece while they still have their point of sale piece for the dispensary. So then it's just 2 partners they're working with instead of 5, which is, you know, the example that or the solution or the problem that we want to solve. And so yeah, so now we have a meeting with Dutchy on Monday to go over the integration. So we're like, yeah, so things can move really quickly. I mean, we have a client, and they were like, okay, well, I need to use Dutchy because that's what they said we have to use. And we're like, okay, well, we can integrate with them. Let's get it going. And then Dutchy's like, yeah, why not? I mean, we have all these other integrations, but so we're fine with it. So yeah, I mean, right now that's huge for us. Something really exciting, and literally just kind of happened out of the last 2-3 weeks. And so that's kind of how quickly things can change. And you kind of can't foresee that sometimes.
Yeah, that would be, I think, one of the hardest parts. I know people talk about like economic conditions and like regulatory conditions, like impacting industries as much. And I feel like that's very prominent with the cannabis industry.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think it's about, even too, I feel like we're just scratching the surface on what delivery could be and will be. You know, when people ask like, oh, are people still ordering via delivery and stuff? And I'm like, yeah, it's not the same numbers as it was back in 2020 when delivery was the only option, but it's definitely more than what it was, you know, prior to 2020. And now people know that it's a viable solution for them to get their cannabis because they used it. And even too, I might not do it every time, but at least you know it exists. You might use it. And even too, for dispensaries, if they didn't have delivery, bet you they have delivery now, most of them, because they have to. It's another revenue stream, and it was the only thing that kept them going at one point during the pandemic. But yeah, like I like to say that we're building even for Gen Z. They are the ones that are going to demand convenience and demand and just on demand everything. So, you know, I hear clients and sometimes, and they're like, you know, my older patients, they don't really like using the app or the website. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I get that. And there are going to be those use cases, but overall, like we're building for the future, and futures like Gen Z and beyond, when they're going to be like, everything needs to be an app, everything needs to be delivered, everything needs to be on demand.
That's why I think like, yeah, like my generation, like I'm 23 years old, like everyone, I started doing like Instacart, like had my groceries delivered, like you have
Same, yeah.
streaming. People want convenience. I think being able to deliver something like cannabis to someone is even more convenient than like people can imagine. Instead of having to put on the shoes, put on the pants, put on the jacket, and go walk outside, drive wherever, and actually pick something up.
Yeah, or even just wait in line at the dispensary, like, yeah, so definitely.
Yeah. I'm curious, like so take me from like a 0 to 1 perspective, like knowledge about the cannabis industry. Like what's the main way that you guys like get new clients? Is it through like sales channels? I don't know how that's regulated. Is it like meeting clients?
Yeah, no, great question. So we've done account-based marketing, and what's good about cannabis is that all the licenses that get awarded to the people that can have a cannabis business. So
Okay.
it's not as easy as, going back to your previous question, it's not as easy as sometimes people think, because you have to go and get a license from the state. And sometimes there's a limited number of licenses, or they're only awarding licenses to social equity applicants for the
Yep.
first X number, which happened in New York. And so, but at least as a business, we know who all the potential customers are, which is good. It's not as many as some other industries, it's definitely growing, as more states and stuff, and, come on, and then more states release licenses. But yeah, so we do a lot of account-based marketing. And honestly, like, we've gotten by with referrals. We haven't really done like anything much. I mean, we had a PR team last year, kind of just to
Yeah.
get our name out there, because we were so just in the background, like, and that's who we are as a team, is we just love building technology. So like,
Yeah.
but people are like, we have never heard of you. Like, yeah, because we're not out there.
Yeah.
So we got a PR team to kind of just help establish, brand awareness.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so like referrals, account-based marketing, yeah, and just knowing who those clients are and calling them, emailing them, and just kind of staying in contact if now's not the right time. And then maybe, somewhere down the line, when we have X feature and we think it's going to work for them, we can contact them. But yeah, so I think it's really all about the relationship
Yeah.
that you have with these people. Because we've seen that, yeah, we might demo someone and they're like, it's just not a right fit, or we're not ready right now, but then they come back. Because one, there's not too many options in the cannabis space, which is nice. And yeah, so when it comes to like sales and stuff, yeah, that's kind of the extent that I can share.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, like, because I feel like these companies are like these companies need to find some sort of way to differentiate themselves. And because I feel, is the cannabis industry, would you say, like a competitive landscape with like the locations you can go to? Would that be a fair statement?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like they need to have some sort of way, if that's through technology, to actually be able to like provide better customer service, or not customer service, or customer experience. And that's one way they could do it, is through drop.
Yes, exactly. So that's really what we pride ourselves on, is the experience overall, not just for our clients, but for their customers. So like, as a client of ours, like, you can get your own app, and nobody, like, hardly anybody has their own app when it comes to cannabis. I mean, just last year, Apple announced that you can have a cannabis delivery app in the App Store. Like, it literally took until 2021, and the Google Play Store still hasn't done it either. So prior to all of this, prior to Apple's announcement, we pursued technology and utilized technology called progressive web app technology. And this is used by many companies that a lot of people might not even realize that they're using PWA, like Pinterest, Twitter, Starbucks. It acts and it feels just like an app, but it's, web-based. And you can save the web page to your iPhone as like a bookmark, essentially, but it's like an app. So anytime you can click on it from your home screen, it acts and feels just like an app. So yeah, I mean, for us, like, that was the only way to provide this type of experience, because of some of the regulations that we were facing. But I still think like it's definitely a great option, because then, you don't have to deal with the App Store. You don't have to, submit changes and then wait for them to approve it, and then etc. They could change the regulations at any time. So yeah, for us to utilize technology like that, we were like, that really sets us apart. Nobody was doing that, and still doesn't really do that. But if you want an app in the App Store, you can totally have it, and we can help you get that. But yeah, I mean, just as a customer, like if I'm shopping from the same dispensary or the same delivery service, like I could be earning loyalty points,
Yeah, absolutely.
for my purchases. So
Yeah, I love the gamified like aspect of that really. That's a nice touch. I want to ask, so the cannabis industry as a whole has a compound annual growth rate of like 24.3% until 2027, which is very, very good. I'm curious, in 4 years now, I mean, what are like two of the biggest things that would have to happen to like in the cannabis industry to like really accelerate it?
I think for sure, I mean, federal legalization, I think is like the
Yep.
biggest thing. Or if more states came on, and then if like more states offered more licenses as well, because I've seen it be, sometimes like, yeah, states come on, but then it's a really limited number of licenses and
Yeah.
stuff. And so, but I do think that if New York can kind of get in a good groove of things, that could obviously be a huge market just because the population there, and that everybody uses delivery. There, and it's second nature to them. And so I think New York has the possibility of being a
Yeah.
bigger market than California is,
Wow.
just because of sheer size,
Mhm.
and just like I said, consumer preference and just delivery as a whole. But there's, still challenges. But yeah, I think federal legalization for sure. And if that can happen, then more states
Yep.
that have cannabis legal, and then more licenses in total. And also banking, like safe banking, it
Mhm.
didn't get passed again in Congress. And so, I mean, we're always like fighting the fight and trying to, but I mean, yeah, more states. I think 75% of the US has some form of cannabis legalization in some way or another. So, I mean, that's definitely a great number. So,
Yeah. I want to take a little bit of a shift to more, we're winding down on time here, just kind of more like your personal journey about like, well, where you come from. You were on the Forbes Next 1,000 list, marijuana venture 40 under 40. You're on the Rolling Stone Culture Council. You started multiple companies, been part of a company that been acquired. Looking back like 10 years ago, I mean, like, what do you think like yourself would be most proud of you for doing?
yes, I think oh, that's a great question. I think one, not giving up with entrepreneurship as a whole. I definitely deviated. Actually 10 years ago I started my first company with my co-founders, Jade and Mark. And yeah, so I mean, we thought that one was like the winner, the grand slam, gonna
Whoa.
get us on Forbes. Yeah, exactly. And we were just literally like freshmen in college. I started out of my dorm. And so, yeah, I think I'd just be proud of myself because entrepreneurship, it's a very hard journey. It's not all rainbows and butterflies all the time, but it's very rewarding at the
Yeah.
same time. And so I think, yeah, just not giving up when the going gets tough, because regardless, you're gonna have good times and bad times, and but the journey is all what's it about. So I think just sticking it through and still being here as an entrepreneur, I think I'd be most proud of.
Nah, awesome. Is there like a time that you felt like I said, like you started your first company in your dorm room, you did green light, you're doing drop. Is there a time you look back on and you're like, wow, I accelerated like the most in my like personal life and like my professional life at this certain time?
Yeah. So after my first company, yeah, when I was like 19, 20, didn't work out. Tried to start another one. That one didn't work out. And then I just started working random jobs. I was like a personal assistant to a handbag designer. I was a receptionist at a PR firm. I tried helping someone doing like Amazon FBA.
Cool.
Um, and then I was an e-commerce marketing manager for a beauty brand. And so, but I was just like never happy and was like pretty miserable, and knew I wanted to get back into entrepreneurship. I just like didn't know what it was going to be or what it was going to look like. And when Mark had called me up and said, "Hey, like I have this idea for this app in cannabis, like do you want to come and join us?" I think just making that decision to take the chance on myself. I left a corporate job
Yeah.
in New York City, just moved, saved as much money as I could, moved to LA and started working on Greenlight with Jade and Mark. And I think, yeah, from like that point on, I think making that commitment to myself and to entrepreneurship in general of like, okay, I'm jumping back into this. I can do this. This is
That's
my
awesome.
decision. And yeah, let's see where this takes me. So I think like that was probably like the like turning point. Um, yeah, back in like 2016, when I made that choice. And then yeah, I think ever since, I mean, I'm so grateful for the journey so far, and obviously the success with Greenlight, and still being around here with Drop. I mean, this is like the longest we ran a company, the farthest we've ever got with a company, besides obviously the acquisition. But it was kind of so fresh out the gates that we didn't run Greenlight for that long. So yeah, just happy to be here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Was it tough, like when you decided to leave your corporate gig and like jump back in entrepreneurship? Like, was that?
Like it was because, you always have like you never know what's going to happen with
Yeah.
entrepreneurship. I mean, I had it not work out before,
Yeah.
when I thought it was going to. On paper, I had a decent, corporate job. I lived in New York City. The job allowed me to travel to Europe a few times a year, but I just like wasn't happy. I was like working in a basement and I was living in a basement. So
Oh
like
no.
that combination in New York was just like 100% depression.
Oh no.
So yeah, and like no windows all the time. So it just like was not good. And yeah, maybe someone else. And I was like, I'd rather give up this job to someone that would love it, cares about this, lives and breathes it, because I don't. And I want to be doing something else. So yeah, I think very scary taking that chance on yourself, but you only live once, and I could have been left with what if Mark and
Yeah.
Jay did it and they were part of, and then they got acquired and I wasn't a part of it. And then I was like, man, I shouldn't have been scared. I should have just took the chance on myself. So um yeah, it definitely was. But I mean, to each their own. Like there's nothing wrong with a corporate job. It just wasn't for me, at the yeah.
I love that. I love that. So two more questions for you. One,
Yeah.
I mean, advice to young 20-year-olds, young 20 somethings, like what's like one high value task that you think every like young 20 something should do?
High value task. Um, and this is not really a task, but this is what kind of just comes to mind first, is like know yourself, like learn
Mm.
what are your habits to be productive. It might not look like what it does for Bob on your team or
Yeah.
whatever. So, like knowing yourself and how you work and how you can get the most productivity out of yourself, and to keep yourself, emotionally, mentally, and like a happy balance so that you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. Because it's like I got a dog in COVID, because I wasn't leaving the house. One, I was just on my computer all day and couldn't
Yeah.
really go anywhere. But and two, like I forget to go outside sometimes as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur and like literally step out of my house. So I got a dog because I'm like, I need some fresh air. I need to just like get out of this work bubble that I'm in. And so that was something that I did for myself personally, just to help keep me sane and balanced. So I think, yeah, take those early years of like, yeah, if you're in college, what are your learning habits? Like how do you what are how do you work the best? Like
Yeah.
how can you be productive, and how can you keep yourself balanced as much as possible? um which I know is very hard sometimes, but yeah, so that's what I would say.
Awesome. And then last question for you, Vanessa, you were awesome. Thank you so, so much for joining us. Where can people connect with you? Where can people learn more about you? Please plug those links and they will be down below for everyone to take a look or a click.
Yes, you can find us at dropdelivery.com. That is our website, also on LinkedIn as well. Please feel free to connect with me and give our page a follow, our company page a follow. Yeah, I'm always available and like open to, chat with anybody that wants to, pick my brain, or if you want to learn about cannabis or entrepreneurship. I'm always happy to chat with anyone. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa. You were awesome. And thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thanks, Ryan.
Stop.